Hey, friend.
Hey, girl, hey.
Morning. I love the morning.
Yes, you do. I fucking do not. But I'm present.
You're present.
Yeah.
I'm present too.
Amazing.
Okay, this is a really interesting episode.
Yes.
When is enough enough?
Ooh, child.
We haven't even talked about what we're going to say, but it emanated from a conversation we had about the middle class.
Yes.
And so do you want to give some background to people listening or viewing?
Oh, so it was the conversation that we had about how we may have identified when we were younger and what that looks like now. Especially because we know in the United States today, there really is not a middle class. I mean, that is such a precarious position, especially when eggs are $20 and what we have access to comfortably. I think there are many things that can kind of cloud our judgment intentionally to make us think that we're comfortable. But really, many of us are one paycheck, maybe two, away from losing it all.
Yeah, and I also think that there are a lot of people who maybe identify as middle class or close to middle class who are clearly not in the middle class.
Oh, 100%. Nobody wants to be poor or think of themselves in that way.
So it's so funny that that's where you went. I was going to say no one wants to think of themselves as rich.
Well, this makes sense given our life experiences, right? And so I grew up, myself probably would have identified myself as middle class, but definitely was not until my mom began to kind of rise the corporate ladder. But it was her position singularly that kind of helped to lift my entire family out of poverty, honestly. And so she's like the one that made it out. And because of that, we kind of were able to climb on her back. And also because I was also not a teenage parent, many things. My grandparents were together in a relationship. My grandfather always worked. And so there were many protective and promotive factors around me that helped me to get to where I am, and obviously my mom to get to where she was. But you couldn't have told me, like, we didn't have money in the bank short of what you drank when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, especially because comparatively, my lifestyle was better. Right? I could have the new shoes. I could go on vacation once a year, even though we drove from Florida all the way up to the eastern shore of Maryland. It didn't matter. We stayed at a hotel, right? But on paper, no, we were in poverty at the very best, maybe when my grandmother worked outside the home as well as my grandfather, working class.
Yeah, and for me, I think the comparative factor is kind of the key element when you have these conversations about perception, right? Because I grew up in Massachusetts, experiencing my situation as middle class. My parents would have identified as being part of the middle class, though I was placed in environments where there certainly were a lot of people who are much wealthier than I was. And comparatively, we always had way less, which is ridiculous given what I know now as an adult kind of managing a family and a life, and what we had access to was certainly not what would be considered middle class now. Anyway.
Wait, so when you say what you had access to, you mean you had access to more or less than what? Yeah,
like
for sure.
Being part, like going to private school, going to camp, traveling on an airplane. You know, I did, it wasn't like all the time, but I, you know, went on an airplane maybe once a year.
Yeah.
That's way more than most people in America have never been on an airplane.
Yeah. I remember getting braces when I was 13, 14, and it was like a huge deal, right? Because where I was from, the Black kids, that was a luxury that most of our families could not afford. And so if I'm looking back and thinking about what were kind of those signifiers that we had kind of made it, the braces might have been the one thing. And that was when I was in the 8th grade. And after that, you know, my mom's job took her farther and farther away from home and from me in many ways. Like I missed her. And I think that was a formative time in my life. But I also know that sacrifices had to be made in order for me to be here now. And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. And when do you decide, if you get that opportunity, that you're satisfied?
That is the question, because it becomes addictive, because you think, oh, I just can have a little bit more. I can just work a little bit harder. I can have more. And the question is more better? Is more good? Or is more just more?
And how do we know when more is enough or when more changes? Yeah. I think. So I look to you so much in this regard as someone who's been a solopreneur and very successful. Um, do you, for example, have a I think gross is the right term. Like when you think about your business,
Yeah.
do you have a gross number in mind every year?
Yeah, yes, until I achieved it. And once I achieved it and I met particular lifestyle goals, I've honestly, Margo, I am being 100% transparent with you. I am so fucking content. And I'm trying to figure out how to outsource work right now. This is my season of working smarter, not harder. And if that means less money, I am content with making less money. Just to throw a number out there, I remember when I found out that some of my personal friends and business owners who I love were making like $1 million a year, for example. Right? I'm not saying telling anybody business because they've said this publicly. I remember thinking, I'm about to make $1 million a year, bitch. It's up. Like God showed me what they could, what He has done for them. I will have that for me. This is the purpose of examples in our lives to provide inspiration. Let me just work to get the bag. I'm gonna get the bag, get the bag, get the things. I don't make $1 million a year, but I feel like I live $1 million a year lifestyle. Do you see what I mean? Because I have freedom and independence and I can travel and I can give so much so consistently. There's nothing that I'm about to cry. My little brother says he wants a pair of shoes and he works so hard. You're going to have the shoes that you want and he doesn't ask me for a lot. That is such a tremendous blessing. My nephew needs to go to summer camp. Write the check, go to camp. I don't need $1 million a year to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what would the sacrifice look like to make $1 million in order to be able to earn that much? I'm already stretched so thin.
You are.
The limits on my time and my attention. If that is success, girl, I don't want it. I think I have reached a tremendous blessing as far as my income is concerned, especially because my grandfather retired and made $36,000 a year. It's up as far as I'm concerned. So I am in a season of the table has been set and it's just time to eat. Enough is enough. What about you?
That's so beautiful. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. I also don't make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
And I had a salary for a really long time.
Yeah.
And which was a complete and utter blessing for me and my family. And I never saw myself as able to make a lot of money. Like I was in legal services, I was in social services.
That's actually real. Yeah.
I was in nonprofit work. And like there was part of my identity actually that was attached to not making a lot of money.
That's so interesting. Yeah, when you come out of law school, especially, but before that, you were doing
homeless service work.
And so part of your identity becomes, I have chosen a path in life that is never going to become particularly lucrative.
Right. And I also, I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast before. You know, when my husband and I met, I was in law school and he was making $40,000 a year. And both of our lives have changed drastically.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been together almost 20 years now, so it's not overnight, but
of course.
Like a lot of professional change, a lot of life change, a lot of children, and a lot of we have taken on a lot of debt, which is a choice that we have made. I love our life and I'm so grateful for our life, and I never want to take it for granted, and I also don't want to be stressed about money all the time. Which is something that I experienced when I was younger. So sending my kids to camp, sending my kids to classes, whatever it is, I am able to do now without a lot of stress. And there's something inspiring about starting to make money.
So I just want to say this idea of not having to stress. I think about all the people in my life who are currently in a very high stress
Yes.
environment about just having their material needs met day
Right,
to
day to day.
day.
Food, gas,
Oh God. Oh God.
rent.
And how when I went from 2 incomes in my household down to 1, even as a high earner, how stressful that was because my lifestyle had been built
On 2.
on 2. And so it is a luxury, especially in this country, given everything that you said about the middle class being completely eviscerated and eroding for a number of reasons. I just saw this thing about how Amazon workers, many of them, you saw this, are living in their car. And these are people who work there full time. And there are many people who have full-time jobs, which is what we're being told to do in this society. You're just not working hard enough. Get a job. You're lazy. Working every single day, 5 days a week, overtime if they are so blessed to do so, and cannot afford food, clothing, shelter, and the needs of their children. There is something wrong with that.
Yes.
And I wish I could just give my younger self, number one, but many people in my life, just a little bit of this piece. And I think that's what drives a lot of my activism because I've always known like the jig is up. Even being young and like being tracked in these high performing programs and coming back home and kind of seeing the difference and hearing what my friends were experiencing in class versus what I was experiencing. And I'm just like, wait a minute, something is off here because everyone should be having the experience that I'm having. And I feel the same way now.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, this isn't exactly what you were saying, but related. We saw your nephew yesterday, who I call my nephew, even though he's clearly not my nephew. And he was talking about how different the emphasis is on education. He's up here for grad school.
Yes.
Being here versus kind of where he grew up. And how he doesn't like Boston very much, but he wants to raise a family here.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting because there is like almost to, I would argue, like to the other extreme, an obsession about education in the Northeast.
Oh, yeah. And then for someone like him, I mean, just talking about middle class values, as a Black boy in the South, academics in the environments we come from were never encouraged. Everything was about athleticism. From the time he was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, you know, you start playing the Pee Wee League. And so I'm sure for him, seeing young people, a diverse group of people at that, racially, who are, I don't know, from K through 12, actually being encouraged to excel academically has to be very different. But I happen to believe also that we're educated based upon class lines.
Mm-hmm. Well, for sure. And I was just going to say that like it's not as though every community in Massachusetts has access to high quality public education.
Period.
There are a lot of schools that have lost accreditation. We could go into that. Like if you think about the gateway cities in Massachusetts, like Springfield, Taunton, Brockton, Worcester, Lawrence, Lowell, all of those schools systems are really struggling.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask you a question just to shift a little bit?
Yeah, anything.
Okay, so you mentioned that now, so at first you saw yourself as kind of being locked into a salary as a legal services attorney, as a professor, etc. And now as a business owner, something has been unlocked, right? You can make as much or as little as you choose. How are you defining goals and success now, especially if the financial kind of measurement is the category of conversation we're having today?
So I'm trying to figure it out, honestly. I'm trying to, and we've talked about this and the different, what did you call them?
Verticals?
The different verticals of work. And I have multiple verticals of work. And some of those verticals bring me a lot of joy and little money.
Yeah.
And some of those verticals bring me some joy and fulfillment and more money. And some of those bring me more money and more stress.
Okay.
And I don't actually think stress is necessarily bad. And I don't necessarily think that everything you do professionally should bring you joy either, millennial speaking. But kind of evaluating where I want to put more of my energy and feeling kind of this pull to do something more creative or different, which is actually potentially lucrative, but also a risk.
Mm,
Does that make
mhm.
sense?
It does. No, it does.
Can you tell us about our sponsor for today?
Absolutely. She's a given. I found Margo She's a Given, which is a virtual administrative assistant business. As many people might know, Margo and I are both solopreneurs. We also have the podcast together, and I've gone through several fits and starts and just trying to find the right fit for administrative assistants, finding someone who is within budget, but also finding someone who can get the job done as I understand more about my business and now our business. They have many different models and individuals you can work with depending on your needs, depending on skill sets. But for me, the most helpful has been calendar management and travel. What about you?
I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know how much time during my week I was spending on administrative tasks that I wasn't very good at. So, scheduling, sending Zooms, making sure like memos and notes were being sent, making sure invoices were being sent. I had a whole slew of invoices that I had not sent and hadn't billed my clients. Formatting things, copy editing things, basic QuickBooks, basic Canva. I mean, Kate, the woman who works with me is, I believe, to be incredible, and super flexible and really likes what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, again, that is another piece of it. It's not necessary. She's been amazing, and she's really smart, and she's really good at things that I'm not good at. And I am okay just
Delegating.
can you source this thing? Can you write up this invoice? Can you calendar these 4 Zoom meetings and make sure all of these people are included and the virtual note taker is set up? Can you synthesize these notes? Stuff that for some people is easy, but for me is not easy.
A complete time saver. And if you think as a business owner or a busy parent, or you are starting your consulting practice, whatever it may be, you might think to yourself, I could use some help, but I don't know with what. They can help you answer the with what.
Right. So I think Emily is amazing. Emily was a former executive at a very big company on the West Coast and decided to launch her own business after her child was born. She has a really incredible story that I will let her share with you. And she interviews and vets and is our point of contact, but she finds the most amazing talent.
Absolutely. So we will leave her information down below. We highly recommend She's a Given, and we are happy to be a part of her community. And we thank you for supporting the businesses and the brands that support the podcast. And so you're just trying to figure out where we put our time, our energy, and sometimes also our like financial investment to see what grows.
Starting different verticals needs investment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And growing current verticals needs investment as well.
So that's been also hard to figure out, right? Like figuring out when this is something that I should just do on my own, or can I contract it out, has also just been a learning process.
Yeah.
What about you? As you see your business growing, you've talked about working smarter, not harder, kind of contracting out more. But as someone who's so detail-oriented and specific about deliverables, is that hard for you?
Yes, because I have to slow down to provide people the proper training and access that they need to fulfill the responsibility. And before I do that, my default is always, I will just do it myself, especially when I feel like I'm on a deadline. And sometimes things are just not going to be perfect. And that's also enough when enough is enough type of conversation. I often say I can't make perfect the enemy of good. And it just depends on how I'm feeling that day, honestly. Sometimes I'm like, I'm operating in a season of absolute perfection. The thing is going to be the way I want the thing to be. And other times I have to be like, I showed up. The content is up. The thing is submitted. It's done for today. That's the best that I can do. But I do think the latter is more important than the former when you're trying to grow a business, because sometimes you got to break shit. Shit's going to have to fall. Things are going to have to fail. It's an iterative process, and I have to back up a little bit in order to allow that to happen.
So I think what's so interesting is one of the so a lot of people who listen to the podcast might be business owners, but a lot have jobs.
Yeah.
And when you have a job, wherever it is, whether it's in private, public sector, corporations, nonprofits, whatever, there's some sort of professional feedback you get.
So true.
Right? You get like a job performance, and maybe that's not accurate, but you get feedback about the different verticals of work and how you're dealing with them.
Yes.
In terms of your management or your deliverables, are your clients happy, right? You get, I think when there's some very basic, like if you have an unhappy client, you know that. You know that as a business owner. But no one is like, I would like someone to put me on a performance improvement plan.
Not a pip.
I would be like, Margo, you need to like pip it up here, right? Or here's where your or someone to be like, you could be making a lot more money in this vertical.
Period.
Or you should be focusing on this because this is an area of growth where, I think one of the fun things about owning your own business is like coming to those on your own, but also sometimes you're just like throwing spaghetti at a wall.
Yes. And I think that this has been a season of just learning how to become more and more comfortable with that. And I think the more comfortable you become with that, you have the most potential for growth.
So can I tell you a story?
Yes.
So I was hanging out with these two wonderful friends of mine last week who are one's a business, but they're both business owners. One's a business owner and one's a consultant. Both very successful, I would say. And we were hanging out, and I was sharing with them that I was feeling frustrated with myself because I had been asked to participate in this event. I want to be very vague about it, but like I was asked to participate in this event.
Sure.
I asked for a fee. The organization said that they couldn't pay me that fee. Instead of just saying the price is the price and sorry, I can't do it. Because that every hour we're not working and getting paid, we're not getting paid. Mm-hmm. Not that every minute has to be compensated.
But still, things take time and dedication.
This is my area of expertise. This is the substance I work in. And so whatever. So there have been a few prep calls.
Okay.
Which is okay, but a lot of time. And then I was asked to go do a site visit. And
this is all before the thing.
Before the thing. The thing hasn't happened yet. The thing has not happened yet.
Okay, gotcha.
And I was sharing, like, this is an interesting thing for me to experience because being resentful is not a health, like, I did this.
Yeah, that's true. I think about it all the time.
Right. I did this. I could have easily said I'm not available.
Yep.
Being busy is also an identity that I don't have to like take on all the time. I can say no to things. So I said no to the site visit because it would have taken 4 hours out of my day.
Good for you.
But then I felt bad because I thought she was annoyed. And my friend Maria said, Margo, the price is the price.
Period.
She said, when you cheapen your price, you cheapen your value.
My God today.
And if you can, what did she say she was using some business term, like you can tell them the price is the price and then zero it out and take a tax deduction or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That seemed more complicated. But she said, you have to believe that your price is your price or no one else is going to believe your price is your price. And so I was, the universe tested me yesterday. I have not shared this with you yet, where a client, I had submitted a proposal to a client and the client came back and was like really nickel and diming me on my hourly rate, which by the way is under market. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to put it. And at first I was like, oh, I'll just agree to it. And then I was like, you know what? The price is the price.
Hey, come on.
I mean, I don't know what he's going to say. He could say, I'm not interested, which is okay. But that's the first time I've ever been able to just be like, that's it.
And in my opinion, watch how God works, because I believe that once you show that you're not going to drink the pickle juice, as Nicki Minaj once said, less of the pickle juice shows up.
I love pickle juice.
You're not.
It has so many good electrolytes.
I don't know how we got there. Only with you. Only with you would we fucking get there.
Some people drink pickle juice after
Okay,
exercise.
friend, this is great. I'm saying in your business, you're not taking pickle juice. And once you demonstrate that, there is an energetic shift that I think that also happens.
This is a question for you and for all of us who are dealing with different verticals of work. The price is the price.
The price is just the price.
But the price for doing a training
is
different than the price to testify in a case, for example, which is different than the price to do a long-term contract, which is different than the price to do content creation.
Yes.
How do you come up with the price?
So it depends on the industry, right? So for content creation, this is probably where I negotiate contracts the most consistently, right? Where someone's in my inbox at least once a week trying to collaborate on something, whether on YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok. Usually for me, my biggest number of partnerships come from YouTube. And so I have talked to other friends in the industry. I know kind of my track record of how much I've gotten paid in the past. And so I always start with the highest number. Or let me take that back. Depending on the brand, I'll say, what's your budget? Because I don't want to undercut myself. But I go into it knowing that it is going to be a negotiation. And if someone has to walk away, so be it. Because when you are operating from an abundance mindset, and I think that's what kind of enough is enough says to me, you have to know that more is on its way. The second you operate in scarcity, in fear, people can smell that. Brands and businesses can smell that. And it's like, bam, gotcha, bitch. Because they have to know that your work, to your friend's point, is so valuable that you were blessed just to be sitting beside me, to think that you can even have a part of my expertise and my value. So you going to pay for it? Are you going to make the conditions worthwhile for me to join whatever this venture is? Or are you not? Because guess what? My mortgage is paid, bitch. And that's the most important thing for me. I got food, clothing, shelter, and Berkeisha. And I can sleep at her if I have to.
And
goddamn.
Pooks.
And Pooks and Bay. And Bay got a job. You see what I mean? So at this point, I'm kind of, am I feeling myself? Of course. But I also think
but we've also been told that's bad.
We've been told that that's bad. And you just cannot operate in an abundance mindset believing that. And I think the second we hack our brains in that way, and Jen Sincero talks about this.
Who?
Jen Sincero, which is like this personal development coach who talked about the ways that money is all around you. You are a badass at making money. You are a badass at making money. Highly recommend the book, okay? Not quite Gabby Bernstein, but also one of my personal sheroes. And Jen talks about this. And Jen says, hey, money is all around you. Are you going to get the bag or not? And I think it is this idea of abundance is really important.
Okay, so how do you make, and this is, I am earnestly asking because I feel a lot of conflict around this.
Okay.
How do you marry that with a critique of our capitalist system?
So it depends on who the client is and what the work is, right? I am starting to do work with a number of nonprofits on the consulting side. Those numbers look completely different based upon my investment in the work, number one. Also, their budget and what the long-term goals are and my contribution to what I see as a larger movement and what my impact might be. They are usually funded by philanthropy, by maybe state or federal funds. And so I'm mindful of that, obviously.
Yeah.
But when a brand comes to me, what they pay me is always much, 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 much less than what they could, especially when we think about the exchange for value, which is access to my audience. So I think what's most important is that we have our own like ethical principles. And so when I say enough is enough, it's like, okay, I don't have to be shucking and jiving and shaking ass with the toothpaste every single day to gain something from my audience because I just personally want more. I'm content. I'm good. It's your own personal value system, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I think you are such a good example of that because you do it so unapologetically and seamlessly.
Oh, thank you, friend.
Of course. No, I mean,
Thank
that's really honest, right? That you have a really subtle, deep understanding of many different verticals, and where you feel as though your value fits within those different verticals, and you can move within them pretty seamlessly. So I was thinking as I was preparing for today, one of the challenges for me is that I sometimes forget where I was.
Oh, like it's prior to starting your
No,
business?
no, not prior to starting my business, but like I don't, I just keep moving without slowing. Not in a way like, oh, Margo, you need to slow down. I slow down plenty, but like more in a way like, oh, I wanted to be last year at this point. I was here and now I'm here. Let's think about how that changed. And it was specific about you because you naturally share your journal with the world.
Oh, you mean like
Like,
as far as the content is
yeah, well, your
concerned?
content and your someone could, I mean, not that I'm sure some people do this, but like someone could look at your content and be like, where was Tashira 5 years
Oh, I
ago?
see.
And what was important to her 5 years ago? And what's important to you now? And I wonder if you have advice for people who are not creating kind of public content
Hmm.
about how to reflect on your growth.
Yeah, it's funny. So we're gonna have an episode about a check-in on goals. I don't know if it'll air before or after this one, but I have definitely had to work on that because I've had seasons where things have moved so fast until I've been like, damn, I had like a really big week or I had a big month and I'm so busy and it's just on to the next, like Gaga say, another bus and another club and another bus. And you're just moving so fast that you can't even be in the moment and be like, God, I thank you. I recognize the growth in the season. And so, a couple things I think you have to, especially as business owners, we have to build in periods of being settled, whatever that looks like to us.
Mm.
Whether it is nothing on our calendar on a Monday, if it's that bubble bath on a Friday morning, like Sonia talks about, one of the members of our community,
A breakfast bubble bath.
because no one's going to give us permission. I have my Asana check in coming up soon where I put in my Asana first quarter goal check in just to actually ping me and remind me to take a moment and to reflect. You know, I'm a big journaler and also a gratitude practice helps me as well. And I fucking just big up myself like I've done in this episode. Like, I'm just not, I don't play small. In any way
She doesn't.
whatsoever. I don't fucking play that shit. I know what it feels like to have the lowest self esteem, to value myself for the least, to be in partnerships and work relationships from a place of like deficiency and a deficit. I ain't fucking going back no more. I've been delivered. I'm the shit. My business is amazing. My friends are amazing. It's up. Period.
May we all take some of the sweetness from that. No, it's true. I mean, it is true about you.
Thank you for you
Um,
as well.
Thank you. I think knowing when and how to set those goals and celebrate them when they are achieved is something that we need to do more of.
Yeah.
So, because when you think about when you were a little girl and you thought about your life, did you think it was ever be as sweet as it is?
No, I knew it would be good and I was fighting for this. I just had no idea how I was going to get here and I didn't anticipate the thorns and the pain and the walking across coals. But I should have been able to predict my resilience because we both have just fought through the hard times to get where we are.
So the difference for me is that I would have never imagined my life would be as good as it is.
So what was your thought process when you were young?
I mean, I, I just, I couldn't see beyond the next day because I was so scared of failing.
Mm,
I mean, that's a little hyperbolic, but like, I just never, I always felt so different and like I was missing something or like good things weren't coming. Um, and like that's more internal than anything else, obviously. But I also just, I mean, my life is beyond my wildest dreams. And like both personally and professionally, I mean, personally, like I really wanted a family.
yeah.
And sorry guys, I really wanted daughters. and I have 3 of them.
Good job, Josh.
So anyway, I digress. I guess more just I didn't allow myself to say the thing because I was afraid of failing. And now I'm allowing myself to be like, hey, I want to make it to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I've done that lately, it's happened.
See what I'm saying? So you've proved to yourself that you can do it, and I feel like it's a muscle. I was talking to one of my good friends about that recently, and she just told us some stuff on vacation that I had not realized she'd gone through. And now she's so successful, and she's happily married, and she's about to have a baby. And I looked at her and I said, "Do you feel like you can do anything?" She said, "I know I can do anything." And I was like, that has to be such a tremendous feeling. It's like you won the Super Bowl. And talk about hyperbole, but really, like you got the chip. Like you can do anything.
Do you want to talk about how you get mad at your friends when they don't see it in themselves?
Oh, bitch, you want to get cussed out by me? Don't do that playing small shit around me.
It's like
Marco's like, I'm trying. So amazing. Don't do this.
well, so there was this. So we don't know when this is going to air, but once it airs, this will have already happened. We're speaking at this amazing female business owner.
Yes, it's a summit.
A summit for women business owners in Boston.
Yes.
And there's a pitch contest, and it's very exciting.
They pour a lot of resources in the city into women entrepreneurs.
And so I think also a lot of small businesses, which
Absolutely.
is very exciting for me to meet other business owners, because I don't, other than you, I don't really know anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we're doing this fireside chat about our entrepreneurial journey.
1 second, which is actually just a really cool way of saying we're the keynote speakers. But go ahead, friend, go on.
Okay, so there's one version of the story that the people who are organizing this fireside chat are big fans of yours.
Of ours. They listen to the podcast,
No.
obviously.
But there's another that they're fans of the podcast.
Obviously.
And we had this like amazing introductory call. Everything's great. It's all planned. Your travel's planned. Everything's good. And I call you the other day and I was like, wait, am I an entrepreneur?
I was like,
and you're like, bye.
Because I'm not doing this with you today.
And I was like, wait. I wrote about this in our Substack. It takes me a minute to catch up.
Yeah.
This is not me being like, oh, pick me. It's like, wait, I've never said that I'm an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've said it 4 times this week. And I wonder if that is part of what you're saying. It's like less about the number, but it's more about taking on the identity.
You speak it over yourself, and then you lean into the identity.
You have to work at it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't just like entrepreneur.
Faith without work is dead. Like you got to put that work in it. Somebody said when you pray, you move your feet. Like you pray and you expect the miracle, you expect the thing, but you move your feet to actually make it happen. And so, yeah, I think those things have to go hand in hand. But you said something, friend, that I thought was powerful. You said, my life is beyond my wildest dreams, which is just so beautiful. And I'm happy to be a part of your life. But I also think that is another piece that helps to define our mindset and keep us honest and grounded when we say, when is enough enough? Because if your life is so amazing now, what more could you want? Like, why would you sacrifice to take on more gigs or to earn a bigger salary or to do whatever the thing is that we're being told in this society we should do? But your life is amazing now.
So this is an interesting thing because I also personally, and this is not everyone's experience, I get a lot of joy out of working hard.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my identity. I mean, now some people could say that's ego. I mean, sure. I get a lot of joy out of being independent. I want to be a good example for my daughters.
Yeah.
But that's something that I wrestle with because when there are sacrifices that come with, like I missed, just as an example, like I missed an assembly this morning.
Yeah.
And does that make me a bad mom? I mean, I don't know. It depends who you ask.
I obviously don't think so.
But this is interesting because you don't think so? Thanks. How do you define it?
What?
Like how do you make those choices? Like I guess as my friend, what would you say to me?
I would say that I think the season you are in currently, I would love to see you celebrate your wins more.
How?
I would love to see you take a beat and just be like, I'm creating all of this around me. And not only have I created it, but I've sustained it and I am maintaining it. And it's not just a podcast, it's everything. Like, you did it. You did it.
God! You did it.
So I don't know what we fighting for. We did the thing. Check. We're moving on.
But there's a lot more work to be done.
There's a lot more activism. There's a lot more movement building.
Yes.
For sure. That never stops it. And don't get me wrong. I believe that we are dealing with an economic system that is wholly exploitative.
Same.
Right? But it is not exploitative to earn a wage. It's not exploitative to be able to sit and to rest in comfort, because that is what we all deserve and should be owed. But I think that we can take a pause and say, I worked really hard to get where I am, and I am grateful. And to be a good steward of this, of whatever this is, I have got to invest in myself and the people around me in a community that's larger.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I do that. I mean, I don't think I do enough in terms of activism and movement building. And that is something that I would love our community to weigh in on as we galvanize, and how can we engage in efforts around that when so much of what we've worked for has disappeared overnight.
Well, can I say something? I think you should give yourself some credit for the podcast, because the podcast is through a spirit of activism.
Yeah, I think so. And there's still people in our community who don't have enough to eat.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
But what would you say to someone who's like, well, why didn't you spend the money you spent on Burkeisha helping your family?
First of all, I've spent much more helping my family than I did on Burkeisha. I wish that was the only investment that I've made.
I guess more just like this idea of luxury and a soft life as an example of the problematic nature of economic disparity and capitalism. And how do you marry that with an acknowledgement that, yes, the system is screwed, and I don't have to suffer because
the system is
that
screwed.
I didn't create is screwed.
Absolutely. And let me just say also, I think there is a liberation that me, my people like me are also owed. And I'm not saying single-handedly that I'm changing or there's this big revolutionary act by my existence, but what what I am saying is we used to have to fucking boil hot water when the propane tank ran out in order to have a hot bath in my house. You're goddamn right, at this stage, if I am able to fly my family out to a resort, I'm going to do it, because we've had to suffer under this system. And when we have moments of reprieve, we deserve it. We will live and we will enjoy it. And I will fight for other people, their ability to have it as well. I think that's also part of the duality, right? That I have seen what's on the other side, and the jig is up. I want us all to be able to win once again. And if it means I have less for others to have more, I'm perfectly fine with that. But right now there is a softness that I am going to enjoy, because that is also, in my opinion, an act of resistance.
And I think the podcast has allowed a lot of people who maybe don't see themselves as activists to engage in some kind of self-inquiry around where they're going to put their energy that way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I 100% agree. I mean, I hope people see this space and you all sound off and let us know as one where you can see your reflection and you feel encouraged and inspired, and you feel like there are certain vulnerabilities that can be held and we can say the thing out loud.
Yeah. And can I just say something? Because I don't like to bother you so much during the week because I know you're really busy. But like in the last week, I've done a lot of stuff for myself. Like I hung out with friends in a sauna for a while. There's a place in Somerville. It's really fun. And we were joking because it was like four of us or three of us. And we're like, because you're like so hot. And we're like knocking over water bottles. And I was like, this is like when we were in college with beer cans, but we're like in a
Big Asian
sauna.
Asana.
uh, we went to New York for your bridal weekend.
We did.
We also went to a sauna then. There's a
so
theme
good.
here, everyone. I every Tuesday morning exercise with my friend Lauren.
I love it. Who I met.
Yep. And she's so inspiring. I try to have coffee at least once a week with a friend.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I had a couples massage with my best friend Nora a couple weeks ago. Right. So it is a new season for me. And how I know enough is enough is that before I would never have let myself do multiple things for myself in a month
That's beautiful.
and not worry about it or feel bad about it. Like I'm so extra, I'm so needy. Now I'm like, no, that's how I'm going to hang out with my friends.
Let me tell you who is the big example of a life of ease and prioritizing it. I think for us both is our friend Alex L. And we've talked about her before on the podcast. It's her work is to live well. That is the work. And we know this, right? In our society, it takes such a tremendous investment and also the ability to like clock out literally of our brains and that part of us. It says that we have to be in this high octane lifestyle all the time. And I think for you and I, coming from legal services and being attorneys and like living in big cities and always kind of having this grind culture surrounding us, we've had to work extra hard. We are still working extra hard to divorce ourselves from that mindset. I do think we can enjoy hard work. I've definitely seen examples of that my entire life. But I think it is how we're working right now because everything you've done for yourself is still a form of labor.
Yeah. And it's interesting because this is another place potentially where the podcast community can be a resource for ourselves, right? That depending where you live or work or commune, you might not have other not I'm not saying we are, but you might not have models of rest, stillness, or enough.
Ooh, talk about that.
I certainly don't. I mean, I live in a very high octane community with a lot of people who are like resume wise extremely professionally successful and still pushing for more.
Yeah.
Which is, whatever. I mean, that's amazing, I guess. I mean, it is amazing if that's what they want. They often, many of them seem very tired.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet. So what is, I think, our message going forward for how we welcome a season of enough and abundance, but also recognize that it's nothing wrong with having goals? How do we make that distinction in a healthy way?
So what I'm taking from this, which is actually really helpful, is being unapologetic about where we want to be or what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Giving ourselves time to reflect on what we have and planning for our future.
I like that.
Right. So I was also thinking kind of in a life cycle, depending on just like where, your family structure, the economy, right? That things can shift pretty drastically, pretty quickly. And so how do we buffer ourselves for change while also like sitting in comfort? I don't know, but that's going to be something I think about and plan for.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you?
I think also for me, again, like being a good steward of what I currently have means taking a beat and taking a breather and a rest. So like tonight I'm going home because it's important for me to sleep in my bed tonight and tomorrow night. And then Sunday I'll be right back and I'll fly in and out. I don't mind hopping on a plane. What I enjoy though is, and what I am enjoying is like rooting in my relationship and rooting in my home right now.
That brings me so much joy.
Thank you, friend. And that's something that I'm recognizing more of, that the grind doesn't make me any more successful. The grind can actually be toxic and get in the way of my success. And right now I want to maintain what I have in a way that feels healthy, in a way that feels whole. So take a take a breath, and breathe a bit into this season is what I think is really important. And if things are intended to grow financially, then so be it. But I think there's something around being grateful for what I have
I
right
feel
now
that
that's
too.
really important. So enough is enough.
Enough is enough. Also, isn't that something you say to kids? Like, enough is enough.
Yeah, enough.
Enough is enough. But that's not about, like, things. That's like your behavior. Like, you've said enough. Stop saying.
Yeah, or like you've done enough. That's enough. I don't need no more. Just everybody.
Enough, like, go to bed. You've
Enough.
studied enough.
Yeah, and you've done enough, friend. Enough.
Thank you. But sound off. This is a really interesting.
I think so.
I think there's a lot more here, and I think those of us in the community who are like manifestors or who are expansive, how do you decide when to kind of shut it down?
Mm-hmm. And I also think once your material needs are met, this could not necessarily have an income attached to it. And I want to be clear about that.
Income is one of the metrics, but
yeah, but
time is one of the metrics.
There are many ways that we should define what it means to live the life of our dreams. We went to income in this episode, but your socioeconomic status, once again, your needs are met, which we cannot assume in this society. Does not necessarily have to define how expansive your life is.
No.
So I want to be clear about that before we leave today's episode. I also
think that, one of the biggest riches that you and I both have is the flexibility.
Absolutely.
Which most people don't have either.
Yeah. Yeah, period. Okay, you all, sound off. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, like the video. We know you loved it already. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to Justice. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to learn more about our podcast, be sure to check us out on our website at justicepodcast.com. You can also reach out to us there if you want to be featured on the show or if you have a business or a product that you think would be a good fit for our audience. Thanks again for listening.